All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour, where Saudi Arabia has now come out and denied this meeting between the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. Now, the Israeli sources had earlier stressed in the meeting as one of the major breakthroughs between both the nations. The Saudi's Foreign Minister, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, has denied all of these reports. And what is very significant is that Saudi Arabia has chosen to deny this meeting, which actually has been confirmed to an international news agency by an Israeli cabinet minister. Now, on the other hand, the mystery around this very covert meeting continues to deepen, as Netanyahu has neither confirmed nor denied the reports that he visited Saudi Arabia and met with Mohammed bin Salman. Now, interestingly, according to reports, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has also refused to comment on this meeting. The brief trip, which, if true, would represent the first visit by an Israeli head of the government to Saudi Arabia. It will also come amidst a flurry of diplomatic breakthroughs between Israel and some of its Arab neighbors.
Thank you very much.
All right, now to give us more insight into what is actually happening here, we are joined in by Jody Cohen, who's an international affairs expert. She joins us now from Jerusalem. Now, good afternoon to you, Jody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us in this broadcast on WION. And let me begin by asking you this. The reports have surfaced that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, made this trip. We're given to understand to Neom in Saudi Arabia. But the Saudis are not particularly very open about admitting about this trip. What's happening?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Mohammed. What we do know is that there was a flight tracker that was detected yesterday, and a flight was detected from a direct flight going from Tel Aviv in Israel to Saudi Arabia, and then it was detected returning later on, about 5 hours later. So we do know that that was a private jet, which would seem to indicate some sort of high-level visit. And as you said, the Israeli Education Minister Yoav Gallant later confirmed that that meeting was taking place between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Mohammed bin Salman, otherwise known as MBS in Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince. And that was following media reports, not only in Israel, but also apparently a Saudi official had been talking to the Wall Street Journal, and it was reported there as well. But as you said, later on in the day, the Saudi foreign minister then denied that that meeting had taken place. Netanyahu was asked to comment, and he rather vaguely said that over the years he has neither confirmed nor denied that such meetings take place, but that over the years he will always strive to develop Israel's relations with other countries further. So somewhat an ambiguous response, but suggesting that this meeting did actually perhaps take place. We also know that there have been denials in the past from Gulf states when they were in that stage of negotiating a peace with Israel, and then, particularly, for example, Bahrain, and then within a matter of only days, then an announcement did come out. So that's not to say that an announcement will come out with Saudi Arabia, but there are indications that this meeting did actually take place, but that they're not yet ready to confirm it.
Absolutely, indeed. And also looking at how things have been moving on in the region in recent weeks, we saw the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and also subsequently Sudan normalize their relationship with Israel. Give us a sense of what the mood is like within Israel. How confident do they feel, considering the fact that Netanyahu has repeatedly been saying that he would like to annex parts of West Bank? With that kind of rhetoric from Jerusalem, how confident are they of establishing full diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia?
Israel is very optimistic, very confident. After decades of no further, I wouldn't say engagement, there's certainly been engagement, but no progress in talks with other states. We're in the position now within the matter of weeks, as you said, that they've announced agreements with the United Arab Emirates, with Bahrain and with Sudan, and there are strong indications that Saudi Arabia would be next. And the reason I say that is because that there are strong interests in common between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and the primary one of those is the issue of Iran. King Salman bin Abdulaziz recently said that there's a need to have a decisive stance against Iran in the region. This is certainly a shared concern. One of the Saudi policy advisors recently indicated that it would be naive of politicians to expect to go back to the nuclear agreement of the past. They want to strengthen it further. They want to any potential future agreement with the international community in Iran to not only deal with nuclear weapons, but also their vast missile arsenal. There's also, obviously, coronavirus is affecting everyone around the world, and the need for partnership working between countries is really, really strong. So that's another shared interest. And the final one, of course, is trade, because Saudi Arabia has their Vision 2030. They're very keen to modernize the country, and there are certainly opportunities there. As you said, we're seeing a real change in the geopolitics of the region.
Absolutely, indeed. And Jody, it's good that a lot of the nations there are normalizing relations. They're establishing full formal diplomatic relations with the State of Israel. But the crux of this entire controversy and the crux of the entire conflict still lies with what happens with the people of Palestine. Now, till a solution is found for the Palestinian issue, now many people are saying that there may not be a viable Palestinian state that we could look at. Not many within Israel would want to go back to the 1967 border for a two-state solution. Do you think, despite the fact that many nations would like to establish full formal relations with the State of Israel, that peace can actually have a chance in the region?
The final status agreement between Israel and the Palestinians can only be negotiated between these two peoples. And the Saudi Arabians have said right now that one of the stumbling blocks for announcing normalizations is to resolve this Palestinian issue. The Saudis have also expressed frustration with the Palestinian leadership for their failure to take advantage of offers that have been made to them in the past. I would say that peace is likely between Israel and the Saudis. I think the question is actually one of timing rather than if it will happen. For example, there's assessments that say that the Saudis will wait until President-elect Biden takes over and will actually wait for a bit of time after he's become president in order to give him the opportunity to say that he's been involved in these negotiations and that he brought them into the Abraham Accords. Mm-hmm. They want to win favor with Biden because when President-elect Biden was a candidate, he talked about to reevaluate US-Saudi relations in light of the human rights record. So that will be one serious consideration. Saying that, President Trump will want to strengthen his legacy and will want to, we've seen indications already that he'd like to bring more countries into the Abraham Accords. So that's not to say that an announcement won't be made before President Trump hands over to President-elect Biden. The Saudis are showing signs of warming. We know that the Saudis have opened the airspace to Israeli aircraft. And in fact, the fact that Bahrain joins the Abraham Accords is a tacit agreement of the Saudis, because Bahrain wouldn't have done that without the Saudis' agreement. Right. And the last point in timing is that the older leadership of Saudis are more conservative, and the younger MBS, Crown Prince, is certainly more keen on developing relations with Israel. So these are all considerations to take into account the timing of if it will happen. It will be certainly symbolic if it does happen, because Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of Islam. So it will be hugely symbolic and a good sign of progress in the Middle East and things to come.
All right, we'll have to leave you there. Thank you very much indeed, Jody Cohen, for joining us and getting us all those insights.